Hi, I'm Ross Bolton. Welcome to my funk rhythm guitar video. You know, the word funk gets used a lot to describe all sorts of music, but the true funk music period began in the 60s with a guy named James Brown and his musicians. And then it evolved through the 70s and then kind of faded away in the late 70s when disco became popular. But you know, during that time there were a lot of bands playing some incredible grooves. And one of the great things that emerged out of that time was an innovative style of rhythm guitar playing that we're going to talk about today. The difference between funk rhythm guitar playing and other guitar playing of that period is that instead of the emphasis being on long extended solos and heavy guitar riff type tunes, the idea with funk rhythm guitar is to find a part that blends in with the rhythm section, almost making your part invisible but adding to the whole of the groove. So we're going to try to capture the essence of that in this video. We're going to start with basic techniques. We'll do a lot of different guitar parts that show contemporary styles and traditional styles as well. We'll start out simple and we'll get really advanced. But basically we're just going to turn you into a burning, churning funk rhythm machine. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you get a lot out of it. Let's get started and tuned up. Here's an E. Here's the B. G. D. A. And finally a low E. Okay, before we go on and talk about basic technique, let me mention one thing, and that's that you need to develop a good internal sense of time. And one of the best ways I can think of to do that is every time you sit down to play or practice, you need to practice with a metronome or a drum machine. And if you have a drum machine, set it up to a basic pattern like this one, where the bass drum's on 1 and 3, the snare's on 2 and 4, and the hi-hat's just hitting straight 8th notes. Now the reason for that is you're going to be playing 16th note patterns. Some of them are going to get quite complicated. And whether you're playing straight 16ths or swing 16ths, a simple pattern like that won't get in your way. Now speaking of 16th notes, most funk music is based on a 16th note subdivision. Now what that means for us as guitar players is we're going to be scratching with our right hand constant 16th notes. Now that's 2 up and 2 down strokes for every beat of music. We start with a downstroke. Now when I count, you'll notice I'll have a downstroke lining up with a count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I know that looks very simple, but there's a lot of little things about that you need to know. So let's start with some basic right hand technique. Okay, the key word here is loose. Everything should be loose. Your arm is loose, your wrist is loose, your hand is loose. I call it having a drunk wrist. And the exaggerated hand motion is kind of like you're trying to shake water off the end of your hand. Now you'll notice through the video when I play, I keep my fingers kind of dangling loosely here. You may have your fingers cupped in like that. That's okay. Either way is fine, as long as you don't have anything fixed to the guitar, like your fingers fixed to the pick guard or your wrist fixed to the bridge. You don't want that. You want a full floating motion with your hand over the top of the guitar. Like that. The only tension at all is just enough to hold the pick in place. And speaking of that, a lot of my students at GIT, when they first start this technique, this funk technique, a lot of them complain about the pick slipping around either one way or another. And I find that the most common reason for that is that they don't have the pick flat to the strings. If you're stroking the guitar and your pick isn't flat to the strings, if you have an angle, it's going to slip this way, or if you angle it that way, it's going to slip the other way. Keep your pick flat to the strings. And the last thing I'd like to mention is one of the most common problems for having a good sound is that people drag their pick across the strings. When you're playing this kind of music, you want a tight sound. If you drag your pick, it tends to sound sloppy. So hit the strings as if, almost as if you're hitting them all simultaneously. Before we go on, let me show you this chord. It's an E dominant ninth chord. It's the mother of all funk chords. And it's also the foundation for most of what we'll be doing in the first section of this video. Here on the 7th fret, we're playing an E with our second finger, a G sharp with our first finger, and then with our third finger, we're barring the top 3 strings, all on the 7th fret, to complete the chord. Sounds like that. Now, while I got you here, let's just mention a couple things about left-hand technique. The whole thing here is to be efficient. You want the minimum amount of movement necessary to get the job done. Your left hand controls the articulation, that is, which note is played when, just by squeezing down, and then raising up just enough to mute. That's all the movement you need. You don't need to be flailing around all over the place, especially when the rhythm parts get complicated. The last thing is that the left hand controls the length of the note, too. Just by bouncing your hand, how long you hold it down. Now, this is true whether you're playing chords or single notes, and you'll see throughout the video that this is really a necessary technique to have together. Now that we've talked about the techniques for each of the hands, let's take each one of these 16th notes and isolate them. This is going to be crucial for you to play more complicated parts later. Isolating these 16ths is the basis for all of your funk guitar playing. So, if we get the drum machine going and we start scratching our 16th notes in time, so we know there's 4 16ths per beat of music. There's 2 downstrokes and 2 upstrokes. Let's start with the first downstroke. It's called the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is probably the easiest one. It lines up with the bass and the snare. It's a downstroke. The next downstroke is called the upbeat. It's the 3rd 16th, and it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now let's go on to the upstrokes. There's 2 upstrokes, the 2nd and the 4th 16th. Now our tendency is to rush these a little bit. Here's the 2nd one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Now the 4th 16th is probably the most difficult one. It sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. Notice it falls right before the drums. Now, at this point, you may want to stop the tape and practice these on your own, because, like I said, these are the building blocks for building the other guitar parts. So if you're ready, let's combine a few of these attacks into a classic, traditional sort of rhythm guitar part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the cool thing about this guitar part, we'll call this our basic JB part in honor of James Brown. The cool thing about this guitar part is that it takes all 4 of those attacks and spreads them out over a bar to make a very cool rhythm pattern. Let's go in and take a little closer look at this at a slower tempo. Let's start scratching with our right hand. Line up with the drums. Before we play the part, make sure with your left hand you squeeze nice short attacks. Keep the sound tight. Your right hand is loose, flat against the strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, up, down. Okay, let's take it up tempo now. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. our next rhythm example, we're going to go down 2 frets and play a D9. This part also has all 4/16ths spread out through the bar, like the last example. 1, 2, 3. Now let's slow it down and take a closer look. We start with 2 downstrokes followed by 2 upstrokes. Let's just start there. 2, 3, 4. Down, down, up, up. Now I'll add the last attack. It's an upstroke right here. Don't rush this last one. Okay, let's take it up tempo now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now before we go on, there's a couple of things I want to mention. The first thing is about controlling the scratch with your right hand. Now this last part you played, you may have played it scratching the whole way through, and it sounds like this. Now that's okay if you're starting to learn the technique for the first time. It's a little easier to learn how to keep your time constant by scratching. But as you go on and you develop as a player and you play the examples in the video, you want to be able to play it without the scratch as well. So I'll play the same part now without scratching, but notice I keep my right hand moving the whole time to keep my time together. So that's something to be conscious of as you go through the whole video. One other thing, about playing funk guitar, the tone is really important, and the tone begins with your hands. Now, the guitar you use and the amp you use and the effects and all that are important, but tone begins right here. Don't be meek. This kind of music isn't for the timid. When you practice, practice aggressively. Practice like you mean it. Because when you get out and you play in real life, you're going to play the way that you practiced. Okay? So keep your tone strong. Now, let's go on. We talked a lot about 16ths up till now. And there's basically 2 ways to feel the 16th note. A straight 16th, which is the way we've been playing up till now. But the other way that we're going to talk about is a swing 16th. And that's like a hip-hop feel or a new jack swing or whatever they're going to call it this next year. If I scratch 16ths with the drum machine, like this, these are straight 16ths. Everything's even. This is the way we've been playing up till now. But if I make one attack longer and one a little shorter, it sounds like this. Now you can exaggerate the swing, but it's best to just put it right about here. This is comfortable and this will groove well with music. Now once again, straight and swing. So now we're going to take the first part that we played, we called it the basic JB part, and we're going to play that with this swing 16th feel. And it'll sound a lot like this. 2, 3, 4, down. Play along, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. One more time. Okay, now let's play it with the rhythm section. 1, 2, 3, 4. our next example, we're going to move up one fret to F9. And this part resembles the other part that we just played, but we've added a couple of attacks, make it a little bit hipper, and it sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. So let's slow it down and move in a little closer and take a look. Okay, start scratching in a swing feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, double, up. All right, let's swing this one with the bass and the drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to now, we've been playing rhythm parts that have short attacks, but now let's play a rhythm part that has a little bit longer tone with the left hand. Now the way we do that is we hold down with our left hand and float our right hand to get the longer tones. It kind of sounds like this. So, for example, let's break it down a little bit. Let's start by just playing 4 sixteenths in a row like this. We're going to take the same idea. We're going to hold down our left hand. After we play the first attack, we're going to float our hand a couple of sixteenths and then hit an upstroke. And it'll sound like this. Now let's play a rhythm part that uses that figure. We're up here in G9, if you hadn't noticed, on the 10th fret. And the part will sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's slow it down a little bit and take a closer look. Let's just start scratching now. Now at the beginning of the part, there's that long tone, and you're going to want to stop your hand, but keep it moving. 2, 3, 4. Up, down, double. Okay, here we go with the bass and the drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Something I'm sure you're all aware of, but maybe never looked at on its own, is a little thing called a half-step slide, and it's an important component to most funk guitar parts. Maybe sounds like this. Now on its own, we're right here in E9 on the 7th fret. We're going to approach it from a half step below, E flat, and on its own sounds like this. Now we're floating the right hand on the 2nd 16th. That's where we make the slide. It's important to slide in time on the upbeat. That's the basic slide. Now there's three kind of common ways that this is used in context of a rhythm part. Let's play one beat patterns. The first one is the slide, holding the left hand down and floating the right hand, and it sounds like this. Now if we bring the right hand down and scratch the whole way, it sounds like this. Now if we raise the left hand on the 3rd 16th, we get a little more syncopated sound like this. Now you may want to stop the tape and check these out on your own. Now up to this point we've only been using this one voicing of a 9th chord. In the next section after this, we're going to be going over a lot of different shapes for funk chords. So hang in there, believe me, we're going to play more than just this. And if you've had a lot of experience playing this type of music before, I realize these are all basic fundamentals we're going over now. But just like basketball players do, you need to look at your fundamentals regularly. Okay, now let's go on and we'll use this floated right hand and the half-step slide, and we'll put it into some rhythm guitar parts. This first one is in E9. What a surprise. It's a little faster, it's got a swing feel, and it's got a slide in it. It's kind of based on the original JB part that we played at the beginning of the tape. Here goes. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's slow it down and take a little closer look. Okay, start swinging. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, slide. Down, up, slide. Okay, now you're ready to play it with the band. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's move down the neck to the 3rd fret. This is based off of a C9. There's a couple of half-step slides in this. It's a straight feel. Sounds like this. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's slow it down and take a look. Remember, it's a straight feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slide, up, slide. Okay, let's go up tempo. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's move up to D9 now. This is also a straight feel. This one is a little different. It starts on the and of one rather than on the downbeat. And it has a long tone with a slide in it as well. Sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's slow it down. You want to keep track of where 1 is. 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. 1. 1. Okay, let's take it up tempo now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for this last example of this section, we're going to move back up to E. Now this one's going to be a little bit faster, so I'm going to demo it just a little bit below where you're going to end up playing it. There's a couple of slides in this, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's slow this down. There's a slide right at the beginning on beat 1 and on beat 4. 2, 3, 4. Slide, up, up, down, slide. Slide, up, down, slide. If you're ready, this one's kind of fast. Let's play it with a band. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we've been talking about basic technique with the right and the left hand and getting them to play together. Now let's go on and let's talk about some chord voicings. Now, when I say chord voicing, I mean the order of the tones from the scale in which the chord appears on the guitar. But you need to have a good understanding of the fretboard, and that starts from knowing a few different chord shapes. Now, the ones that I'm going to show you, and they're not all the possible chord shapes on the guitar, these are just practical, common funk chords on the top 4 or 5 strings of the guitar. Now remember also, these are movable shapes, so that when you learn one of these patterns from the chords that I show you, feel free to move it around into other keys. Okay, now most funk music comes from one of 2 families, harmonically speaking, either dominant, which is a blues-sounding harmony, or minor. There are also some in major keys, but the 2 biggest areas are dominant and minor, and those are the ones we're going to cover in the video. Now we're going to start with the dominant family. Now when I say dominant, I'm referring to a 7th chord family that derives itself from having the root tone, that's the first note of the scale, the 3rd tone, the 5th, and a lowered 7th. Okay, that's the basis of this harmony. Now let's go onto the guitar and see all the different voicings we can come up with. If we start here in 3rd position on the 3rd fret, this is our first voicing. We're in the key of G now. It's a G7, and G is our root. It's on top. Let's go up to the next inversion. Now we're still on the top 4 strings, and now we have the 3rd on top, and G is on the bottom. Our root is on the bottom. The next chord, the next inversion, has the 5th on top. It's also a G7. This is one of my favorites. I got this from a Sly Stone record. The G is kind of hidden here on the B string, so your landmark is here on top. And then right here in the same position is the G9. And then again in the same position is another G7 right here. We're going to put the 7 on top. And then the last chord, another one of my favorites, is this G9 with the root on top. Now if some of these shapes are new to you, you might want to look through the book and get familiar with them. Now let's connect them with a scale on top, the dominant scale, more commonly referred to as the Mixolydian mode. And if we connect them, we get all the extensions like this. One more time. Now we're going to play a few rhythm parts using some of the chord voicings we just talked about. We'll still be in the key of G. This first one is like something you might have heard on an early Kool and the Gang record or a Sly Stone record. It uses this chord right here with a 5th on top. I think it was the 3rd chord that we went over. And it also uses this G9, our old friend. We put our little finger up here on the 12th fret. That's the 13th, so now what we have is a dominant 13 chord. Okay, the part has a slight little swing to it and goes like this. 3, 4. Now let's play it a little slower. Start scratching the swing. Go down 1 fret and then back, like this. Like that. But you're scratching the whole time. Down, 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 up. Down, 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 up. All right, let's lay it out with the rhythm section. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, this one's a little more up-tempo. It still has a slight swing feel to it. We're going to use 2 chords. First, this G9 high on the neck here. This is the last chord we talked about. The other chord is this G7. And again, we're going to put our little finger on the 13th fret. But during the course of the part, we're going to take it off. You'll hear that. This is something you might have heard maybe on an early Prince record. Here, it goes like this. 3, 4. Play it a little bit slower. One, 2, 3, 4. Down, down, slide. Lift your little finger. One more time. Okay, let's take it up tempo now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this example is a bit slower. We're going to move down into 5th position. We're going to play this G7 chord right here. This is the second voicing we talked about. Remember, it has the 3rd on top and the root at the bottom. And our only move in this pattern is to take our little finger and move it up 1 fret to the 4th. That's called a dominant 7 with a suspended 4th. This is a pretty common move in a lot of funk rhythm guitar patterns. Now our tendency here, because of the nature of the part I'm going to play, is to stop your right hand when we go up to that sus4. Now when you hear the pattern, be conscious of that because you want to keep your hand moving the whole time. Let me play it a couple times and then you join in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Straight 16ths. Let's add bass and see how it sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, a common dilemma for rhythm guitar players is what do you do when you're vamping on one chord for a long period of time? It can get boring, and how do you keep the part interesting? Well, there's a lot you can do. For instance, if I'm just playing on this E9, what can I do? Well, it's a couple of things. Okay, now I'm just doing little things like slides, chord fragments, different voicings to keep the part interesting. Now, that's a lot more than you would do when you were playing a song, but it gives you an idea of your options. Now, the first part I'm going to play, or the next couple parts I'll play, I'll be using the E9 chord with some chord fragments. The first chord fragment, or interval, is this tritone. When I say tritone, it's the interval of a flatted 5th, and the 2 notes that I'm using are the flat 7 and the 3rd from an E7 chord. That's a D and a G sharp. And I'll be moving into that from a half step below. The part sounds like this. 3, 4. Okay, so let's play it a little bit slower and take another look at it. It's sliding and then the interval. 3, 4. Slide. Those are 2 upstrokes. Straight feel. Great. Now to that part we're going to add the same interval, only we're going to take this upper note, the G sharp, and play it an octave lower down here. We'll keep the D the same. So we play that part, and then we add 2 downstrokes, and that part sounds like this. 3, 4. Up, up, down, down. One more. Okay, now let's play the whole part with the rhythm section. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's do the exact same part with a swing feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, for this example, let's move from E9, go over to A7, and we'll play a 2-bar example. Sounds like this. It's a straight feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's break this down. This rhythm pattern is based around this A7 chord voicing right here. It's the same as the first chord that we went over, but it was down in G then. Okay, the pattern starts here by barring the first 4 strings with our index finger, and then hammering on with our second finger to the major third. The next move is to take our third finger and bar the second, third, and fourth strings on the 7th fret, and then go back and hammer again. So it sounds like this. Okay, down, up, down. The next part of this pattern is based around this chord voicing. It's the second one we talked about. It has the third on top. But we're just going to play the top 3 strings, so we'll move our fingers around and play this chord shape with our first, second, and third fingers. Now we just slide into that chord. So the whole first bar sounds like this. The second bar is identical, except that instead of just a simple slide with this chord voicing, we actually float the right hand and use that one rhythm pattern we talked about. Let's play the whole pattern slowly now. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. All right, let's do it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you recall earlier, I said that most funk tunes fall into one of 2 categories, either dominant harmony, or minor harmony. Now we've been talking about dominance. Let's shift over and talk about the minor chords now. Now the only difference between a dominant 7th chord and a minor 7th chord is the third. Okay, you have a lowered third in a minor 7th chord. So the chord, a minor 7th chord would be spelled the root of the scale, the lowered third, the flatted third, the 5th of the scale, and the flatted 7th. That would be a minor 7th chord. So now let's go and look at the dominant chords that we played. Well, we'll lower the third, and we'll create a whole new set of minor chord voicings. You'll remember the first chord we played in the dominant section was this chord. The third is here on the G string, and we need to lower that to make it a minor 7. So we take our finger off, and that's the world's easiest chord to play. It's a G minor 7. Go up to the next inversion. This was the next one in the dominant family. Now the third's on top. Then we need to lower it 1 fret, so we'll just bar here with our second finger. And we have a minor 7. The next chord was this one. Now here the third is on the bottom, on the D string, so we'll just lower that. We'll bar with our first finger. And now we have a minor 7 chord there. In the same position, we had this G9. Now the third is here, same note. We lower that, simply just bring it down 1 fret. There it is. The next voicing was this. Now let's lower the third. It was here on the B string. And we'll put the 7 on top like we did before. The last chord is the only one that doesn't work by comparison. With this G9, if we lower the third, which is on the B string, it's kind of a tense sounding chord. So we're going to play a G minor 7 like this. It's a little easier to play. Take our little finger, maybe you'll use your third, but I'd use my little finger. Now if we connect these using the extensions, we'll play a scale in the top voice like we did in the dominant section. I'm going to use the Dorian scale. Now, that's the note that makes it Dorian. We want the major 6 with the minor chord. That's a common funk move. And then, moving on. One more time. Okay, for our first example in this minor chord section, we're going to play a part that's a little up-tempo, has a little swing feel to it, and we're going to play it in 2 different places on the neck. It's the same part in 2 different octaves. And here we go. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's break this down. We'll begin by using this chord, the G minor. It's the first one we spoke of, but I'm going to add my 3rd finger here and play the root in the bass. Now the move here is with your little finger, you place it on the 5th fret playing an E, that's a major 6th over this minor chord, or a 13, and then you move it up another fret to the minor 7. Now we're going to play the same sound up here in the 10th fret, this minor 7 chord. We'll put our little finger here on the 12th fret, and then on the 13th fret. Altogether it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go up high here. All right, now let's play it up tempo with the rhythm section. Remember, we're playing it 4 times low and then 4 times high. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move it up. Okay, here's another 2-bar example. It's got a straight feel. It sounds a lot like this. 2,